Good afternoon. This is day 134 of making videos to describe day or thought in the life of schizophrenic. My name is Dominic, and I am subject to something called the cognitive war, and it has inflicted mental illness on me, schizophrenia. I have written a book on medium.com called Unveiling the Schizophrenic Tradition that I hope to publish when I return from a trip in about a month to go on a hike. It is on medium.com in chapter form. There you can read it for free. It describes my thought processes which could have gotten me targeted schizophrenic affliction and some technologies that could potentially cause voice hearing, weaponized harassment by technologies and political surveillance groups and things like that. I've done a video on day 17 of these videos. I describe why I call myself schizophrenic rather than targeted individual. On day 45, I express why I make these videos in the first place, in a little 3-minute intro. There's the rest of the video that I have on that particular day. And I do these things kind of to humanize myself, and I've experienced fascism for a long time in this country, and it's now becoming more overt with the Trump thing and what he's doing in the country. So, I think Trump was part of a fascist movement that was part of a cognitive war that is the targeted individual program, and it all culminated in him kind of ushering in this fascist movement. And I'm going to try not to talk too much about fascism, but I'll probably talk about it. Okay, so I was going to start off today talking about Jimmy Carter in 1977 in a book I read, a UFO book I read, and it talked about Jimmy Carter made a statement with regards to Voyager 1, for probes sent into outer space to kind of make contact with alien civilizations. Now, supposedly, we'd already made contact with alien civilizations long before this. The question is, what did Jimmy Carter know about that, and what didn't he know about that? If that is even true, but I think it is. But, Jimmy Carter put out this Voyager 1 to send messages into the universe, and they had like artwork and they had music and stuff associated with it. And he said in his statement about it, he said, "We hope someday, having solved our problems we face, to join the community of galactic civilizations." And it seems like when he makes that statement, he knows that there are galactic civilizations out in the universe. And so people said that was evidence of a galactic federation, potentially. And so this was a president of the United States. And then if you take that further, you see that Ronald Reagan came in and said, wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of outside threat that the united humanity? He was maybe alluding to such a thing, and he was saying, so maybe covertly the nations were united. That's what I theorize with my potential theory that wars are cultural productions to solve human civilization's problems and stuff, and hide a breakaway civilization that is going off into the stars and things like that. So anyways, I wanted to share that little statement by Jimmy Carter that I read about in 1977, which probably a lot of people know. And I had read it today, so I was just sharing that. I read about that today. And, I was going to talk about another book I read today, Becoming Earth, and it shows that animals are dynamic creatures, and that they are they contribute to nutrient processing or nutrient cycling in the ocean and on Earth uh, in unique ways, and this affects geology. And one example of this is beavers, and beavers have for 8 million years built dams around the world dutifully, and they just do it naturally, and this affects the way water and rivers run all throughout the world or in wherever beavers are. And it affects where we build our cities. It affects those things. That's what the book is saying. It's kind of interesting to think that one animal can have such huge effect on civilization, on geology and geography and things like that. So it's very interesting that uh, animals can affect things on such a massive way or whatever. And so I was reading about that today. That was kind of cool. And all right, so I guess I'll keep going on here. Another thing I was going to talk about is, well, I'm a little worried about. I'm kind of very worried about the country, and it seems that maybe we're not learning lessons as people, and I I'm heartened that California. I've gone back and forth on it about like feeling good about the vote for redistricting in California, and I, just like a regular citizen, I'm just going to talk about this, but like what's going on, what we're being presented with as people in this situation, and it's like uh, Trump is ushering in kind of a fascist move, not kind of, but definitely, and he basically ran as a fascist, and he was out and out a Nazi, and people voted for it. And unless you think that he crooked the machines, I have maybe America just isn't what we think it is, and they will outright vote for Nazis. And I theorized in my book that like the Iraq War was potentially a psyop cultural production to paint Germany as a victim in World War II. And I know that's kind of a crazy thing, but I think that if you follow the two mediums, the mainstream medium and the online medium was putting out a heavy victimization and at the same time re-examination, alternative history to World War II and things like that. And these mediums were going on simultaneously, and people were digesting them. And so that's kind of why I think that potentially happened. And then you have Trump come along not too long after Iraq War, and he was like ready to take this fascist move, and he fought for it for 15 years, and he has this 15-year power grab that he's going through. And in the middle of his power grab, the Democrats run 80-year-olds, and they kind of hand the presidency over to him, and it's like, what's going on? I experienced the fascism for the past 15 years, violating my due process, and now you see people's due process being blatantly violated out in the open, not covertly behind some visa court or something. And this is being done with the Supreme Court, and well, Trump's violating court orders, and so he basically ran and won, if you believe the vote count, on a Nazi platform, lambasting immigrants, lambasting transgender people, saying he's going to protect everybody. He deployed the Marines kind of immediately into his presidency and into American cities. He's militarized our cities and stuff. He's harassing people who are his political opponents by using the military, and getting worked up here. I don't want to get worked up, but it's crazy. And I'm kind of worried about this country, and it seems like people are starting to think that protesting peacefully is not achieving their objectives. But if you take a look at what sparked the president deploying the National Guard, it was, well, pretext used for that was the big balls mugging and bloody mess that he was left in, and the carjacking and stuff, and that was, I'm going to say, potentially staged or whatever. And you can't really trust that things happen that way, just so happen. Like, I think it was FDR or somebody said, politics, things don't just happen, things are made to happen. So that incident was made to happen, probably. And, he deployed the military immediately after, so it's very suspicious. And now you have people saying there's a guy going around, I don't know who he is, but I saw the video, and he's saying form peaceful militias, and it's called militia union or something, or peaceful militias in a union, and shut down the economy and take your power. And ideas of shutting down the world system to say people take their power back from the world system have been bandied about for centuries or something, or century. And it's like a fantasy to some degree, and it seems like it was maybe tried during COVID, but I think COVID was like a psychological operation for the backlash, and COVID basically did that, and it pissed everybody off to the point that in Democratic elected governments, you saw this right-wing push all over the world, including in America with Trump. Now, Trump has created a left-wing backlash, I think, in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. And so it kind of just this back and forth or whatever. So it's like, I don't know what effect shutting down everything will have on people democratically in particularly America, but just seems like that will piss everybody off. That's my thought on it, just examining it off the top of my head. Now, sometimes I think about things differently, but later, but that's what I'm thinking right now. It's like, that's COVID basically did that, and it pissed everybody off to the point where there was this big backlash, and Trump came in on that backlash that it pushed everybody into this Nazi cult where they said, yeah, I want my power back, we're taking our country back and all this. And he kind of rode that wave back to the White House, and so much so that he ran as a Nazi and people still voted for him. He was out and out a Nazi while he ran. He ran a Nazi campaign for his campaign for president. And people said, sure, I'm going to go. I don't care. I'm going to vote for that guy. And, I just don't trust the whole idea of shutting everything down and that it will result in what people claim to want it to result in. And I know like Rage Against the Machine and things like that, and it's been a leftist idea for a long time of like, if you shut everything down, you'll show your power, and they'll come to the negotiating table. And it seems like they're ready to pounce when everything gets shut down. Like small businesses go out of business first. The small guy goes out of business first. The little guy can't keep up with the shutdown system. And that's kind of like why when you had the New Green Deal, there was a whole idea of a just transition for the small guy, the guy that was subject to an industry going out of being phased out for a better environmental industry. And that was the whole point of like a just transition, because it you don't want to have a major backlash. And that was one of the reasons that they had idea for just transition, was because they were worried about we were worried about having a backlash in society. Like it just goes right back to where we were, and they further entrenched into unhealthy industries. And the whole idea was that you want to guard against unjust collateral damage when you transition from industry to industry. So that's just shutting down selected industries. So like if you shut down the whole world economy, what's going to be the just transition? And if there is no just transition, what's going to be the result democratically for people? Before we just jump on board saying shut down the whole world economy, we've seen that, and the results resulted in a Nazi running for president and winning as a Nazi, like full out a Nazi. And so, I don't know. That's just my thought on it right now, sitting here, and I'm schizophrenic, and these because I have these political beliefs, I have a cognitive war waged on me, and that's what I'm thinking today in my life today as a schizophrenic. Okay, good.